what is the quality in which I meet my practice, in which I meet my breath, my movement, myself? What is that quality that I am actually looking to cultivate? And this then really becomes about bringing the mind and the body into a coherent state where at the core of it is no matter what practice we're doing, and this is so absent in so many practices. Like I see it all the time. It causes people a lot of damage and suffering. Into it doesn't matter what you do, but how do you meet it? What is the quality? What like are you able to meet your body with a loving intent? Because
Yeah.
often we don't even know what that is because we weren't modeled that. We were not immersed in an environment that was of unconditional love. So, how can we cultivate that within ourselves? This is a question. It is possible. It takes some practice to reprogram, our ourselves, our mind, and but this is the core that we'll open up to is bringing the mind and the body into coherence and connecting with that loving intent. When we do that, this is a really wonderful seed with everything that we've been talking about to start to activate the parasympathetic nervous system.
Yeah. And love is just a difficult term for many people because it's used a lot. And maybe a beginning and a more natural saying without dogmatic, without any without creating any dogmatic scenarios. Being okay with not being okay is maybe the first step of creating a loving intent. Like, yeah, it comes back to our first point today, embracing the resistance. So you can see the resistance, and you are okay with that. It's already creating a loving intent
Mm,
because you see the problem and you don't go against it, and you say, okay, it's just there. And this is the first step in just getting an idea and getting a feeling for what can it mean that body and mind are more coherent.
mm,
What can it mean to connect with a loving intent? It's just you watch out into nature and you see that everything is perfect and there is no problem happening because nature is just doing its thing. Yeah, this is a loving intent. It's just there and you don't have to do anything. And you see that everything works together. And
mm,
you can go a step further. You see the sun coming up on a daily basis, the moon coming up. Yeah, it's just happening without doing anything.
mm,
And maybe this can be a useful thing for, yeah, for people to connect with love from a different point of view,
mm.
just because this was necessary for myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you. And I think, yeah, maybe if we flesh out coherence a little bit, because that could be some jargon as well that gets thrown around. But like really like like we're shifting from a state of where the mind and the body or the idea of the mind and the body is separate,
Yeah.
where we're kind of living from the head down. We start to like there is a merging between I'm not just my head. I am the sum of this and then more as we go into it. But it's sort of a process of bringing this into oneness where I start to see I have thoughts, I have emotions, I have sensations, and I'm interpreting them in different ways. What is the lens in which I interpret it through? And so it's sort of like putting them through the same prism and same focus. And one of the simplest ways is like being aware of our own intent. And so it's like because a lot of the time when we're going into practice, we're not even aware of our intent of like to fix something or the belief that we're broken and all of that. Like that cuts us off from that loving intent, that cuts us off from coherence because then it creates a separation between my mind believes this, but my body is just doing its best to survive. and my mind is still kicking it while it's down. Like, that is not coherence. So,
No.
you know,
It's
it's
it also goes wonderful in all those self-optimization things like I need to be better, or I want to be the best version of myself or whatever. This also can be very limiting because you don't know what it's gonna be like. You just have this moment and you just can become aware of what's happening and then using the practice as a driver to just see what's happening.
mm.
It's just a thought coming up when you were talking about. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, to see what's happening and to see our relationship with it.
yeah,
You know, and that's what creates the quality of the practice. And so I find sometimes we bump into the challenges to like, well, how do I like dial into a radio station that I just have never heard, that I don't know how to get there. And this is often like if we're saying things like, you know, connect with a loving intent with your body, like you were saying before, Marcus, it can be obscure. And
yeah,
what does that even mean? And so sometimes it can be helpful to, like you were saying before, to anchor into what is loving to you and then connecting with that within you, because we are part of nature, you know. We wouldn't be here if it didn't exist. We're in participation with our environment. And so it can be you know, a person, a place, a thing. Initially, these can be really wonderful anchor points, you know, like the feeling of the sun on your skin, and then
yeah,
you connect with that, and then the nervous system starts to like nerves that fire together wire together. And so
yeah,
like by just bringing our focus to that experience and then starting to internalize it, it changes the state of the nervous system and
yeah,
whole cellular environment. And so that can be a really practical way to get started as we're working with the body, as we're working with moving the body, as we're working with our breathing. We're starting to connect with whatever that loving intent is, and like bringing that through every one of our cells as we're moving. And that's one key piece. If you could just become aware of that, this would it would save me a lot of time. I think it would
yeah.
save if we do that one thing, because there's so much trying to do this practice to get this thing is just going to keep you in this churn and burn loop where you're never going to get there, and you're going to eventually hopefully see that you have been seeing yourself in such a negative light, and
Yeah,
operating out of a state of I am separate. So let's sort of shorten that process a little bit and come back to, well, how do we connect back to the nature that we are, which is, in my belief, love. I really do believe that. And whatever that means to you, I'm not here to say what that is, but I really do believe in the goodness of the human spirit and the heart that we have. And even when people do bad things to us and it hurts, still underneath that, someone else did something to someone and someone, and on that went for a long time. And here we are at a point in our evolution, in our society, where a lot of bad shit's happened for a long time. And we are transmuting that, I believe, back into a more loving experience. And it starts with each and every one of us.